Welcome to Let's Face the Facts, the rewatch podcast for the classic sitcom, The Facts of Life. Join us each week as we synopsize, analyze, criticize, and ultimately idolize the show. And now, here's your host of Let's Face the Facts, the wonderful David Almeida!
Thank you, Matthew Arter. Welcome back. It's another week, another show. Thank you for downloading and pressing play. This week, we welcome back to the podcast Diana Eden. She was the costumer for The Facts of Life in its final 3 seasons. If you are a regular listener of the show, you have heard her on the show before. And once again, she does not disappoint in providing us with really interesting and very exclusive details about Season 9, Episode 11, Golden Oldies, and I hope you enjoy it. So, without any further ado, let's face the facts with Diana Eden. Diana Eden, welcome back to the show.
Always happy to come back.
Oh, always happy to have you. Always thrilled that we get to speak to you. Matthew is unfortunately not with us because he's laid up with a migraine. So we are sending happy healing vibes to him, but we've accumulated our questions together here. So I've got some stuff we want to know. And you said you had some stories too, also to share about Golden Oldies.
Yeah.
So did you get a chance to rewatch the episode?
I did. I just watched it, and my God, it's funny.
Isn't it?
There are some funny lines, really funny lines. I'd forgotten.
It's we said it's the last of the great wackadoodle episodes, really, because it truly, when they go crazy, like Seven Little Indians, which you did, and Come Back to the Truck Stop, Natalie Green. I think, was that you two? That was with Natalie in the truck stop. Yeah, those really overly fantastical episodes. Those are few and far between, but wow, they are memorable.
Yes.
And they must have been thrilling when you'd get to that table read and get to see that you would have the chance as a costume designer to really go outside of your normal lane.
Absolutely. Something like that is always fun. And, you have to see how willing the actors are to go with it. And, we talked about different concepts and how these characters would age in the satirical way. And, of course, Cloris was always gung-ho. She's fearless.
I mean,
she will go 100%, toward getting it right and being funny and no vanity. No, well, I have to still look good. No, she went all the way. And she started with the body. She said, my body has to be different. So I got for her, sorry, I'm laughing because I'm trying to think how to say this.
Well, remember, we swear all the time. So language and discretion need not be a concern.
Well, it was a saggy boob job. And what it was this kind of contraption that hung around her neck. And then it was like 2 bean bags that were shaped really low and saggy. And she loved them because there was movement and she could, get that kind of saggy boob look. And I think they might have come from the Carol Burnett show, and Carol Burnett did some characters.
I was just going to say that was right in your wheelhouse, I assume, as since you studied under Bob Mackie, who was kind of the...
Some of those things, yeah. In fact, a couple of the costumes came from Bob Mackie's costume shop. So that's how we got Cloris started. And then in the first change, I had found in a thrift store this burgundy cardigan that I thought was hilarious just in itself. It looked like someone had hand knit it with love, but not much taste. And now nowadays thrift stores, they're far too tasteful, but this I just thought was hilarious. So I kind of built the costume around that. And I found her, a dress that was, an old lady print. And we went from there. So that was her first look. I don't remember any particular details about her second look, but she was just always willing to, go the whole mile. She did not hold back.
No, she was known for that, absolutely,
Yeah,
and it shows in her work. That's her
exactly.
legacy in so many
Exactly.
ways, the product of it. Now,
Yeah.
I recall in your book, Stars
Mhm.
in Their Underwear.
Yes.
Get a little plug. Always
Mm,
try.
thank
Uh,
you.
there is the sketch of the Chloris outfit. So,
Yeah.
with the sketch, was that just a conceptual thing, or did you design or build any of her or any of the girls' costumes? Were any of those built by you?
No, nothing was built. The sketch actually, in this instance, came after. I was asked to submit a sketch to the Costume Designers Guild for their annual directory. And I thought that costume of Claris's, was such a prize. So I sketched it after the fact.
Oh,
No, the pieces were all found. Lisa wore actually kind of 1940s dresses that I had found in my vintage shopping, because even though that's going backwards, it sort of felt dowager-ish.
yeah.
And the only conflict I had tails out of school was actually with the hair department, because I really envisioned her having a dowager upsweep. And
Oh.
they disagreed. And so she did have the what I call the Texas big hair.
Yeah.
um,
And it made her Texan. We talked about that her character, Blair
yeah,
Warner's from New York, and yet when she became an old lady, suddenly the Texan Lisa Whelchel
I know.
came back with a vengeance there.
So
Uh,
yeah, it was almost like an aging country western star. But
yeah.
anyway, um, Nancy was fun. She was with it, and I think in a way her character is the most successful of the four girls. She just, that cranky but clever but cranky comebacks that she has.
Mhm.
And we just kind of went with a house dress and a old cardigan and a scarf, and she sold the rest of it.
And her second look was a beautiful print polyester pantsuit.
Yeah.
And I wondered if that was found or if that was made for it. A little
No.
part of me hoped it was found because it seemed a shame to make that when they were probably in thrift stores everywhere.
Yeah, and really, one can find just the best stuff in thrift stores and
Oh,
vintage stores. So that was great fun for me to shop for those things.
mhm.
And of
Now,
course, obviously, the girls had to have the right shoes and the purses, because that's all part of it.
yes. Now, you brought up about Lisa's hair. That was one of my
Mhm.
questions was what level of collaboration is there in terms of the hair and the makeup all has to work in harmony with the costuming and the decision to say, okay, we're going to give Mac a mustache, things like that. Can you talk a bit to what that collaboration was like?
Yeah, for the most part, our departments collaborated a great deal, and in a perfect world, they should, and they do. But I had made a critical error earlier, and in the beginning of my reign, shall we say, in the fact of life, when we did the um the flashback where they all
62
yes,
pickup.
right, yeah,
Oh, the story you
pickup.
told about you accidentally sent out for the hair.
Yeah. I brought in the wigs, because that's the way Bob Mackie always did it. He had this wig lady, and so I went to the same wig lady and brought in all the wigs, and their nose was really put out of joint, and kind of rightly so. I was just, this was my first show, and I made a big mistake. So I think, for a while, they kind of did what they wanted to do to show that the costume designer really shouldn't have a say. So it was okay, but it was not the way I envisioned her. I just have a big upsweep and dowager, and the Barbara Bush necklace. Poor Barbara Bush. We are so mean to her. She was.
I know. That's all we had. That's all we had to talk about was her pearls. What else was there?
Oh God. So anyway, yeah, in a perfect world, it all gets discussed. The mustache would probably be discussed in the production meeting, and there wasn't that many ways we could make Mackenzie that much older, so we did what we could.
Yeah, we were talking about it with our friend Ken Reed, who is he does a podcast where he talks about TV history through TV Guide.
Oh, yes.
So he will have a guest on, and they'll go through an old issue of TV Guide and just talk about what they watched. And so much just, gateways opening to our collective past and our memory. And so he is a big Facts of Life fan. And he was our guest for the show talking about Golden Oldies with Matthew. And all three of us were like, the Mac costume was, he looked like the mayor of Munchkinland. And we mean that in the best possible way, that you gave him a vest and the pocket watch and the rings.
Yes.
And was it your choice to pad him?
Yes. Yeah.
It really worked, because it's like, well, you can't make him taller, but if you make him stouter.
Well, then there's the line in the second act where Nancy says, well, you're still short,
Yeah. They figured they weren't putting him on stilts or anything.
Yeah. So Mindy, believe it or not, her first dress was a dress of mine. It was a boho dress that I had bought at Joseph Magnin right before Joseph Magnin closed. And that may not mean anything to anyone in your audience, but I fell in love with this dress because it was flowy and it was all autumn colors, and it was kind of smocked across here, but then it just billowed out. And I was mad about that dress. And I thought, it might just fit Mindy. And it did. So that was her first dress, with a shawl and the right accessories. Her second dress, I got from Bob Mackey's costume house, which was called, I don't know, EC2, which stood for Elizabeth Courtney 2. So I don't know who that was used on, but that was hers.
One question we had about Mindy's look. There had been an episode in season 5 where they did a flash forward to the year 2000, which at that time would have been them in their 30s. And Charlotte was still on the show. And because they'd been talking about, maybe we'll go into outer space, and it was 83 and Return of the Jedi had been out. So the way they did up Mindy was they had her kind of looking like she just came from Tatooine, but in light earth tones, flowy things. You could tell she was kind of hippie with the long braid. And we wondered when we watched this, we're like, was this look informed by that? Were you aware of that other look?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I wonder if the hair people then, with that big side braid that she had.
Well, they might have, because they had been with the show, the hair department had been there for quite a while.
They had been there. There was continued.
I don't know if they were there from the beginning, but they were definitely, it's not a new season for them. So it's possible.
So it's possible the hair people were giving us a little nod. And again, we're like, that was when they're supposed to be 32 and they had gray at the temples. And we're like, really, guys?
Yeah, I know.
So, okay, we wondered about that, if there was any intentional, at least on your part, costuming wise. There was not. Fascinating.
Yeah.
And then Kim's looks. Oh my God, please tell me all the stories of what inspired you with those.
Well, just the first one was sort of like, Blanche from Streetcar Named Desire, and just over the top, lots of movement. I remember the hat. I remember sewing the flowers on the underside so they would show, because very often the flowers go on top.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I love the idea of the flowers on the underneath of the brim. So she would just swoop in and be able to, do her dramatic thing.
And the marabou on the cuffs,
Oh, yeah.
all the
Oh, yes.
movement, it would catch all.
Exactly.
And she moved her arms a lot in the
Yes.
episode,
Yes.
as you
Yes.
saw.
Mhm.
Someone said it almost had like a Cicely Tyson feel about it.
I was thinking more Tennessee Williams,
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah.
And that's perfect for an actress. You want drama and
Yes. Yes.
excess, sure, why
Yes.
not?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then the second look.
Oh, I know. Wasn't it fine? I honestly don't remember the details. I wish I had something wonderful to tell you, but I do know that I often use animal prints when I want to do something super dramatic. I just think they really work for that. I don't remember how it went together. I wish I did.
We had the animal print and then that
The hat.
Nefertiti hat
Yes.
with the thing. And again, as we were trying to analyze and say, what did it? Someone said it was like a Grace Jones look. Remember Grace Jones?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
That's totally something I think she wore
Yeah,
in one of her videos. And
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, just so striking, so and comedic. That's
Yeah,
clearly where you're training
yes,
under Bob Mackie. That totally comes through where it's comedic costuming. It
yes,
just goes over that line.
yes, exactly. You've got to do it visually, but also very much with things that move. And
Mm.
actually, Cloris Leachman taught me a little bit about that. She loved clothes that had some movement. And
Oh.
you may notice in the her first today outfit, current
Hmm.
day outfit, um, she had a skirt that was kind of full, and she loves things that aren't rigid. And if she had a
Hmm.
scene where she was coming down the stairs, she liked something that had some movement. So I learned from her about the importance of movement. And certainly if you're going to be dramatic, you've got
Hmm.
to have things that move. So yeah.
Matthew and I often talk shop about just being actors and
Mhm.
collaborating and working with people. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is that you as a costumer, and you had said it was your first TV show, your third season, you weren't a complete newbie, but you were still open-minded to say, oh, this actress is giving me ideas and things that I'm taking away. That's a
Yeah.
wonderful
Yeah.
collaborative thing that we artists get to experience.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just walk in on the, Tuesday morning fitting and say, this is what you're going to wear. It just doesn't work that way. And the girls were always very involved with their characters. They knew their characters by then, just they could turn them on or off.
Mhm.
And so I don't remember the detailed conversations, but I know that I said to Nancy, okay, Nancy, how are we going to do this? And
Yeah.
I'm sure she gave me some kind of a feel and direction. And then it's my job to execute it, make it come alive.
Nancy probably said in flats.
Oh, yes. Yes, for sure. For sure.
Yes. Relating to that, one of my listeners months ago, I think before the last time we talked to you, and we forgot to
Yeah.
ask you this, but
Yeah.
it was just the general question of we know the girls were involved. We know that you, as a costumer, never sent them out in anything that they didn't want to be in, that they weren't comfortable in. Did they ever bring things in of their own to you? Was that done? Is that done?
It is, but not usually with the principals. We
Mhm.
have people who only have one line parts or small parts help us in that way. I don't think they.
There was never a time that Kim came in who said, "Look at this jacket. I love this jacket. Can I wear this as Tootie? Can we fit this in?" That wasn't a thing that happened.
Don't think so. I don't
Okay.
think so. I could be wrong. I mean, they all there was certainly it was the era of high top Reeboks, and they all wanted the high top Reeboks. And those kind of sometimes went between their personal use and their, show
Mhm.
use.
Yeah, Nancy was wearing a pair, I think, the week before. She was in a skirt suit, but she
Yeah.
had on her high top Reeboks.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yes. Yes. And when we had a visit from the Reebok representative, I mean, there was, a lot of, of those ordered.
Oh,
um,
good. Some product
yeah.
placement. They must have been
Oh,
happy.
yeah. Yeah. But yeah, back in the day when money was a little looser, they would come around and it was product placement. They didn't have a formal contract with NBC, but obviously if they could get their shoes on the girls, it was very good for them.
That was a win, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you alluded to earlier that it is common extras when they are employed. You can't costume everybody if you have a gigantic
Yeah.
crowd scene. So
Yeah.
it's not uncommon for the extras, as part of their job, is to bring 2 or 3 looks.
Exactly.
And then did
Exactly.
that always go through you, or did you have an assistant or someone that would vet those?
I was the final say, but we were a small crew. On a film, if you have 600 extras, you have,
Yeah.
helpers.
Yeah.
But when the call goes out for the extras, there's always a wardrobe description. Please bring 2 to 3 outfits suitable for the nightclub scene. Please, no blacks, no reds, no whites,
No logos.
no logos.
They know that. No logos.
Yeah. And then we look at their wardrobe and we approve. And if we don't approve them, we augment. We don't usually dress someone top to bottom.
Mhm.
But we sometimes say, I don't think that dress is quite right. Let us give you a shawl. And then that takes care of that.
Cool. So, had you previously met or worked with Bill Macy before this episode?
No, first time. First time. Yeah.
And any memories of that? Was he a character? What was he like?
I just remember him as being very Bill Macy. I mean, what you see is what you get.
Yeah, we were talking about that's the guy, that's the performance.
Yeah, yeah.
When you're casting that guy, you cast the guy and he plays the guy.
That's the guy.
Yeah.
He comes into rehearsal and he's the same guy, So yeah.
Cool.
When I look back on my 3 years on the Facts of Life, we had so many really well-known guest stars. And if they weren't well-known at the time, they became well-known. I mean, Clarence Gilliard.
Yes, we just did the episode with him, and we were
did
talking
you?
about, we're like, he was in Die Hard, he was in some big movies, and he's a fellow faculty member with you, isn't he?
He is indeed. He is
Yes.
one of the professors at the film school, UNLV. So that's fun. I get to tease him every once in a while about how I costumed him.
And we also did the Dennis Haysbert. We did the Dennis Haysbert episode recently, where you had to dress everyone for Army training for ROTC.
Yeah.
Get out the camouflage. Need a couple bolts of that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not as hard as it might seem, because there's always good surplus stores, and we just go to the, good U.S. surplus or
That's
mint.
true. That's true. I
yeah.
hadn't thought of that. That stuff is easier.
It
So
actually is.
as far as the aging with, the costumes tells so much, and the hair, looking at the prosthetic situation, it looks to me like all of the girls had something, mostly under eye bags. Looks like they did that mostly. Do you have any recollection of that?
Well, just that, they got to do age makeup, and there is, when you're doing it for a sitcom, it's not the, 6 hour in the chair thing that it is,
Yeah, not Mrs. Doubtfire level here.
So, they, I guess, to make people look old, you do here and you do here.
Yeah, when I'm doing it, it's always the under eyes and nasolabial folds.
Yeah.
And that thing. Did Cloris have any prosthetics? It looks like it was all done with contouring. Do you remember if that was?
No prosthetic. No, that was just her with makeup and attitude, and the hair in the bun. I think the high bun was her idea.
Oh yeah. Oh good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cloris should have gotten an Emmy for that episode. She is extraordinary as far as just the expertise of playing the broadness, but grounding it. and,
Yes. Yes.
playing it exaggerated and yet still believable.
Unbelievable. I know.
I don't
She
know how
really
she did.
was.
I, as an actor, look at that and say, I do not know how
Yeah.
one achieves that. It's astounding how
Well,
good she is.
when you watch the younger actors and even our young girls playing old, they have a lot to learn.
Oh,
Now, granted,
yes.
Clara's had a few more years on them,
Mhm.
but to actually play old, you know, uh, it takes quite a bit of talent and technique.
Mm-hmm. And she would go on to continue that by playing Granny in the Beverly Hillbillies movie, I think only
Exactly.
4 or 5 years after Facts of
Yeah.
Life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, more of that
Maybe
magic.
her look got her the job, Who knows?
True. It was her audition tape.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when you're young, we kind of stereotype what old people wear.
Oh, yeah.
And, naturally for a comedy, the stereotype works. But I recently was involved with a low budget independent film where there was an old lady character and they wanted to do the curlers in the hair. And I said, I know old ladies, they live all around me. Nobody puts curlers in their hair anymore. We just don't do it. And
Yeah.
a lot of the stereotypes. So, now that I am the age of a old lady,
In your golden years, as we'll
in my
say.
there we go. There we go. Yes.
But was that the picture you put on your Instagram of you with you had like a silver white
Yes, yes,
wig
yes,
on?
actually it was, yes.
Ah, that was cool. And they originally
That
wanted
was
you in curl. Yeah, that is so weird. Nobody
yeah,
does it because, and that's honestly, it's technology. Because
yeah,
nowadays, curling irons are
yeah,
hotter and more efficient,
yeah,
and they get the same
yeah,
effect and
yeah.
the same
And
hold. It is
most of
weird.
the ladies my age have very short hair,
Hmm.
um, and you don't really need to curl it. It's not enough to curl. So
Yeah, and it's not the '60s where you're teasing it up into a
right,
bouffant. That's,
exactly,
again, that's
exactly.
old lady
Yeah, yeah,
stereotypes.
yeah,
So before I let you go, if you
yeah.
will indulge me some more general questions about the show, and I
Mm,
understand this is 35 years ago. I understand if you say, I don't remember, that is perfectly okay. But these are just a couple of things that popped
okay,
into mind that we wondered. This one
okay,
is a costuming question. We
okay.
are astounded at how often Kim Fields is wearing hats in the living room around the house. And
Mm-hmm.
we joke about that's a TV trope. It's like we know when a woman comes home, everything comes off, bra comes off, she's not in her heels. But these girls are all in their pantyhose and their
Mm-hmm.
amazingly put together costumes. Were hats a Kim Fields thing that she specifically asked for from you?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. As you start to dress people, you know that there are certain things that they fall into that are like their signature.
Hmm.
And it just kind of worked for her. She had a lot of style outside of, the
Oh,
show.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can see.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that was fitting as her as the youngest of the group, that she would kind of be a little more edgy, and
yeah.
that does come through. We love the koala blue stuff. You occasionally had her in for the
Mhm,
Olivia Newton-John in Australia.
mhm,
We quickly honed in on that. We're like,
yeah,
oh, very
yeah,
of its time, but
yeah.
very stylish. This episode is 11 episodes into season 9. And we have yet to see the store. Over Our Heads has not been shown to us yet. And it will come up, I think, in 2 weeks in the episode where they decide to close the store. And then we
Mhm,
never see it again. Do you
mhm.
recall any sort of talk or mandate or decision where it was, okay, we're not using the store set this season, or we're planning to close it? Do you recall anything about the fate of the store?
Not specifically. I mean, probably at the time there was conversation about it. We always joked that the merchandise never changed from show to show.
Yes, it's true.
Same merchandise for 2 years. Um, but I don't think I don't remember a specific announcement. I think it just was, came about and they said, let's get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. And it seemed to us that they were spending a lot more time in the kitchen. What we gained in season 9 was the kitchen, which had not existed, even though Edna's Edibles had burned down and been rebuilt 2 years prior.
Yeah.
So the kitchen, so we're in our minds, we're like, well, they probably just said, well, we've got the homeless center there. That was a sizable set. And we assumed, that's the next question. There are so many backdoor pilots in season 9, so many shows that might have become other shows. Was there any talk or anticipation that you recall where like Big Apple Blue is coming up, the one of Natalie in New York with the young writers? I don't know if you remember that one. Was there any like, okay, and this one we have to do it because we're thinking this probably is going to be its own series? Did they talk like
pilots.
that?
We did 2 pilots.
Where Blair Buys Eastland, are you talking?
Yeah. Is that part of the season?
Yeah, the finale of the series is a 2-parter, and it's where Blair Buys Eastland.
Yeah, we thought that one would get picked up. We thought that if they were going to continue the series, that was the way to do it. Because then they could have Blair anchoring it and then have a whole new generation. The one with David Spade.
Yes,
about that?
Richard Grieco, Big Apple Blues,
Yeah. That was intended to be a pilot for a series. Yeah, absolutely. Those 2 were submitted as pilots for a new series.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
We were aware as they were being done.
Oh, okay.
Because there's always a lot of pressure when you do a pilot it's not just another episode. There's a lot of, we've got to do this right because this could be our next 7 years, our next house, so there's always a lot of discussion, well, especially on the New York writers, what would these characters look like? Because, if it gets picked up, you go from what you established in the pilot. So I do remember that. Yeah, I thought they were separate, but
Yeah, no, the Blair Buying Eastland is contained in the syndication package. Finale. It's on the DVDs. It's considered the last 2 episodes of season 9.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you just before we go, have you seen the Norman Lear special that they did, the Norman Lear 100th birthday special?
I did. Yes, I did. Yeah.
I'm about 20 minutes into it, and already at the big party with the big presentations of the cutaways to all the people and seeing them. It's like, I see all of them. there's Nancy and there's Mindy, there's Kim, there's
I know.
Lisa.
He's amazing. He's amazing. Yeah.
Did you have any interactions with him at all, or was he just the distant father figure?
No, because he had sold the company about 3 months before I joined. But I think I told you about how he took a large portion of the profits he made and divided them up with everybody who had worked on his sitcoms.
I don't know that story.
I'll have to research it for you in a little bit more detail because I can't remember the name of his major.
Was it Embassy?
Embassy, yes.
It was Embassy. Okay, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. When I joined Facts of Life, they said, oh, it's too bad you're going to miss out on getting a check from Norman Lear. And I said, what do you mean? He took the profits, or a big portion of the profits he made from selling Embassy, and divided up to every single person, crew member who had worked on any of his shows during Embassy. Yeah.
Wow.
Some people who had been with him for 10 years got a check big enough to buy a house.
Wow.
I ended up getting, I think I got maybe 3 weeks worth,
Huh.
And I somewhere, if I can find it, have the letter that came with it, thanking us all for being part of his success. And, we are we meaning all of his crew and everybody. It's the reason that he'd been so successful and he wanted to share it with everyone. So I will dig that up for you. Hopefully I have the letter somewhere in a box. But how rare is that someone shares the spoils?
Yeah, that's like profit sharing. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
nobody does that. They all sell the company and thank you very much. And
yeah, off to Rio, as they say.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's a great story. Well, if you are able to dig up the letter, I would love to
yeah,
see it. That's great.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
had not heard that story about Norman. So,
It's
wow.
absolutely true. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right.
Well, Diana, as always, I always say thank you about 100,000 times. And that's literally not exaggeratedly. I say thank you so much because I still can't
Oh,
believe I actually get to talk to you and you were in the room where it happens and you are part of the creation of this thing that is just, it's in our DNA from growing up with it.
who knew? I mean, really, who knew when we started doing it that it would be this way? I lucked
Yeah.
out on my first show.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
just great. So
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you again so much. And I can't wait till next time we get to chat with you again.
All right. And tell Matthew to get over that headache quickly. I know what they're like. Yeah.
I will absolutely send your get well wishes.
Okay.
And there you have it. That was Diana Eden. I did not ask her one question that Matthew had wanted to ask, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. But I'm fairly sure if Matthew had been well enough to be on the call, he would have asked her about Paul Provenza's bulge. So Paul Provenza's not going anywhere. We are going to be talking to Diana in the future, so I will leave that to him. I'll let Matthew handle the bulge business of the costuming. And after I hung up with her, I realized after all the talk of Beverly Ann and her saggy boobs, I forgot to ask her about Natalie's gigantic, super elevated boobs. So maybe I'll remember to do that next time. Who knows? I can't vouch for anything when it comes to my own memory. But anyway, I thank Diana again so much for being on the show. And don't forget, her memoir, Stars in Their Underwear, is still available at Amazon. I'll put a link in the show notes and on this episode's webpage, as well as a link to next week's show that we are going to be discussing, which is Season 9, Episode 12, 1,000 Frowns. That is all for this week. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, the facts of life are all about you.
Let's Face the Facts was created, produced, written, hosted, and edited by the wonderful David Almeida. Our theme song was beautifully arranged and recorded by Ned Wilkinson. Please visit FaceTheFactsPod.com for supplemental photos and videos, links to social media, and ways that you can support the show. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This is Matthew Arder saying tune in again next week for another thrilling episode of Let's Face the Facts.